Hey Flosstube, I've finally done it. I've succumbed to the pressure and started my own channel. So, my name's Katrina Boyd. I live in East Tennessee, foothills of the Smoky Mountains, about halfway between Pigeon Forge and Knoxville. I live here with my husband, two boys who are 17 and 19. So one is a college freshman and one is a senior in high school, so about to be empty nesters. Two dogs, a little beagle mix and a pit bull boxer mix, both very sweet. The boxer mix a little crazy, so they just kind of showed up at the door, so they kind of adopted us. So I've been doing some form of needlework for a very long time, since I was about 8 years old. All of my grandmothers did something, so I can do just about anything that you can do with a needle, but counter cross stitch is my favorite. So for the last 17 years I've owned my own online store, www.stitchingfun.com. We're in the process of revamping that, but you can always email me, call me, message me here if there's anything that you need that you can't find on the site. If the things that you need are on there, of course you can just order directly there and it's fine. And then about 4 years ago, my husband retired after 20 plus years on the Mississippi River, and I started retreating full time. And it was at one of these retreats that I met Dina, who is Half Stitch from Georgia. And she said, you know, she was talking about her Flosstube channel, and I had no idea. So, and she's like, yeah, you should totally do it. And I'm like, no offense, but why does anybody want to watch me talk about my stitching for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, whatever. So it just kind of was in the back of my mind and went away, and whatever. So fast forward 4 years, and I'd kind of lost my stitchy bug. I was stitching because I had to have models for different things, for the retreats around the country and different events that I did. So I was stitching because I had to, but not really because I wanted to. And my friend Vanessa, who is not a Flosstuber but loves to watch Flosstube, said, maybe you should just start watching. Maybe that'll motivate you to get, maybe your stitchy bug will come back. And man, did it ever, with a vengeance. So I started watching Flosstube in June, and I have gotten an incredible amount of work done since then. Like, I just went crazy stitching. So about August of last year, I said, you know what, in 2020 I'm going to start all the things. And when I said I was going to start all the things, let me show you what I mean. This is starting all the things. I'm going to start at least 100 projects in 2020. We'll see. If you do the math, it's a new start about every 3 or 4 days, I think. Now, I'm not going to start something new every 3 or 4 days, but I do plan to work on at least 6 projects a month. So, that's why I started in 2020. I want to document my own journey. Maybe I can inspire somebody who lost their own stitchy bug. I don't know. But, so here we go. I'm going to talk to you today about just what I'm going to stitch in January. Now, how am I going to keep track of all this, right? So I bought myself a planner, and this one is like an 18-month planner. So I started back when I started watching Flosstube in June or August, I guess, was the first time that I actually planned. And this is what my plans looked like, because I had some things that I had started that I wasn't making much progress on. I used to do a 7-day rotation where I changed projects every day, which was kind of fun, but might have also led to me losing that stitchy bug, I think, in the end, because I wasn't seeing any progress. I was changing every day, stitching on something new every day, but I wasn't seeing much progress. So for January, I started planning. So I plan on these pages, my monthly pages. So I'm going to do at least 6 projects. These are my January plans. I'm going to do at least 6 projects, and I've allowed myself about 5 days per project, and then a day for free stitch at the end. So for free stitch, I may drag out one of my 7,000 whips, or I may go back and play catch up. We'll just see how it goes, right? So let me show you what I'm going to work on for January. Oh, and also in this planner are, of course, the daily pages. And in the daily pages, I journal. You know, did I meet my goals that day? Did I, how was I feeling about stitching that day? Did I like the project? Whatever. So, and another way I keep track is something I kind of stole from Megan May a couple of years ago. And I made myself this little page. And on this page, I can put my project name, the designer, when I start it, when I finish it, the flosses that I use here. I've given myself room for a picture on the back. Any notes that I make, so any changes that I make to the design. The design size. The fabric cut size, the stitch count, and the fabric I use for the design. And if any of you want a copy of this, if you contact me, I've got it saved into a file so I can send it to you. You can print it. And then I would just, you know, tape a picture, or even put it in my printer and just print a picture of it after I finish it. We'll see. So this is what I'm stitching in January. So my first project, and I've already started it. I intended to do the video before I started. Didn't work. I had stuff to do, didn't have time to do it. Now, how often am I going to record? I don't know. Probably a longer video at the beginning of the month, and then maybe a shorter one about 2 weeks in, just to show my progress. We'll see. So my first project of the year is Lizzie Kate's official snow guide. Now, so much fun. And I've already made changes to this one. So, and I'm using 28 count natural light for this one. And the called for flosses. Now, on the pattern, it calls for buttons from Just Another Button Company. And those are the mittens here, the little hat, the mittens here, the little hat over here, and these little snowball buttons down here. So those are all buttons. But I think, oh, and the little cardinal on the sled over here. Whoops, over here. So, but I think the chart does have those charted to stitch as well. So that's what I opted to do, because I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with it. I may make it into a pillow, and if I do, I just don't like the idea of the buttons. So I did already make one change to this one with the mittens here. They were charted just to be the red color, which is garnet, Weeks Dye Works garnet, with the white cuffs. Well, because I'm fancy, I added the little snowflakes, which is just kind of like an elongated cross stitch with an extra stitch up the center and little French knots at the end. And I thought it worked out pretty nicely. As far as I know, that's the only change I'm really going to make to that one. And I do work from a working copy, so there may be some giveaways in our future. We'll see. So, and here are all the called for colors for this one. And they're very, very pretty. My Weeks Dye Works, when I handle it, after I take it off the skein the first time, I like to work in like 1 yard lengths. So I do cut it into 5 1-yard pieces and just pull it off like that. And it works well for me. I don't like to work with short pieces of thread. I like to work with these big, gigantic pieces. Get my thread, my floss ready here. So these are the called for Weeks Dye Works that are in there. Very pretty. And then 3 DMC flosses. So the gold, the black, and the gray are just regular DMC. And I do keep my projects in these little plastic snap envelopes. I order them 40 at a time, I think, from Amazon for like 17 bucks. I do have fancy project bags that I'll show you later that people have gifted me, or you know, whatever. So my second project is going to be Winter by the Cricut Collection. And I did change the fabric on that one to this really pretty seafoam from Weeks Dye Works. I think that's a 32 count fabric. The color isn't much different than what it called for. And it calls only for DMC flosses, which is nice. The linen that it calls for is an R&R reproduction, Morning Fog. And I'm not sure if, I looked and I couldn't really find it online anywhere. So, I don't know if they're still dyeing that one. That was an older chart. And, this is just all pretty DMC flosses. And then this one, so those like 500 color greens, and the rosy, you know, mauves 220 family. And this one is probably going to be my favorite project of January. The Snow is Coming Down by the Trilogy, and it comes with the little snowflake charm. Again, I'm doing this one, I think I changed the fabric because it just calls for natural linen, and I really like the Natural Light, which is the same thing that I'm doing the Snow Guide on. And this one calls for Classic Colorworks, Weeks Dye Works, and Gentle Arts. So they're all getting in on the action this time. And such pretty colors too. And I'll work with just a full skein, or a full length of those threads. See how soft and pretty those are? Those colors. Love them. And then these are the Weeks Dye Works. And also in my notes on that page I showed you earlier, if I think, because I will use these for models, if I think you could get away with using the DMC conversion, I'll make a note of that and stick it, you know, on my page so I can tell you. Because sometimes, you know, you just need a stitch or two of these colors. So do you really need to buy the whole skein? Not always. I'm not mad if you don't. Um, you know, I have one, I think in the official snow guide, one of the colors, you only do the stitch of the bird's eye with it. So do you need to buy a whole skein of onyx or whatever to do the stitch of the bird's eye? Nope. Use 310. It'll be fine. So the next one that I have is Starlight Star Bright, and this is a very old chart by Abby Lane Designs. It is still available. Abby Lane, the designer for Abby Lane, unfortunately passed away several years ago. So, are you seeing a theme here with my lots of snowmen for January? We don't get a lot of snow here, so you know, make my own snowman. I'll just stitch them. If I can't build them with snow, I'll stitch them. I am using the called for, which was 25 count mushroom Lugana for that one. It uses Gentle Arts. Again, very soft colors. And a blue spruce. That's a pretty green. Some of these I just pulled out of my stash after I looked at the chart, because there were only a few stitches. And I do use up my, I try to use up what I have, you know, in my stash if I can. And there's the weeks. This one's a little darker, but still pretty. And that one I did on the mushroom. This one's another one that I've had in my stash for a long time. Long Winter by Bent Creek. And I changed the called for fabric on this one. It called for 30 count Mount Vernon Mist, which is an R&R reproduction fabric, which I couldn't find. So, and that's kind of the trouble, you know, when you go back and do charts that have been, you know, out there for a while. Sometimes those colors don't get dyed anymore, and it's fine. You just change them to something that's pretty. So, the color that I decided to use for that one is Platinum, because, and it's just, something that I picked up from Witchelt. It's a Witchelt fabric, because nothing doesn't look good on platinum in my opinion, but it's just my opinion. So and here are the Weeks dye works for that, and oh, not the Weeks dye works, these are the Gentle Arts that are used, sorry. But the Weeks dye works for this one are kind of fantastic. I love them. So I'm really looking forward to stitching that. Look at those. Those are really pretty. So that's Long Winter. And finally, my last project of January. And this one's kind of hard to see, but it's Scatter Snowflakes by Shepherd's Bush. And this one, I don't have the buttons for this one yet, but I am going to order them. And this one is done on, and the colors for this one are fantastic too. So it called for a cork natural linen, which I bought, and I think it's 19 count, so it'll be kind of a long skinny piece. And look at these colors. Mostly Classic Colorworks, which are one of my favorites. to stitch with. Look at those. I love those colors. And one Weeks Dye Works in Molasses. So that's my plans for January. As we go along, in other videos, I'll show you what else is back in this big container of 100 projects. Most of them are kitted or semi-kitted at this point. I say I make this video so my kids will know exactly the point that I lose my mind. I don't know. We'll see. Am I crazy? Maybe. Maybe not. We'll see. So, I'd like to thank you if you came in to watch the first video. I hope you'll come back. Look, about 2 weeks, I'll show you my project, or my progress on my projects. I think most of my January projects I'll actually get finished. The winter project by Cricut Collection, probably not. That'll probably be a carryover. So I hope that you'll come with me on my crazy Stitch All the Things 2020. 2021, I've already decided I'm going to set that aside to just work on my 5,000 whips I might show you at some point. So we'll see. We'll just see where the videos take us. So I also have a few other things going on in January. Like I said, I'm retreating around the country. I used to not start those until April or May. My first one is in about 10 days. So I'm going to Huntsville, Alabama for that one. Then I'll have a girls trip to Franklin that I'm looking forward to. Going to do some finishing there. So I'll have interesting things to show you after that. And then lots of stitching that weekend too. We're going to do, I think, 3 or 4 days. And then I'm going at the end of the month to a Stitching Saturday in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. If you're in that area, I encourage you to join us. You can message me here and I can tell you how to get in touch with Laura Ellis, who runs that one, organizes it, and where it is. It's at the Hardin County Cooperative, I believe, Extension Center, something like that. So, but at any rate, thank you for joining me today. I hope you'll come back. I'll have progress to show next time. You can leave me in the comments anything you'd like to see. I have lots of finishes. I have lots of stash. I've been collecting stash for more years, 25 years. Got some old stuff in there. So if you want to see that, if you want to see some of my finishes, just let me know. I'll pull it all out. We'll look at it. Some of it I haven't seen in a long time either. So, but again, thank you for joining me. And I hope to see you again.